Hi, and welcome to Budget with Tiffany. I'm Tiffany, and I'm really excited to have you here today. I wanted to do a special video where I talked about our debt journey, talk about how we got into our student loan debt, and then how we were able to pay off about $187,000 of student loan debt over the course of the last 10 years. So we'll jump right in. So this spreadsheet kind of lays out all of our various student loans. I started out acquiring student loan debt back when I went to undergrad. I was fortunate enough to, between scholarships, grants, did work study, and I was a resident advisor for 3.5 years, that I was only needed to take out about $9,000 to $10,000 of student loans to pay for undergrad. And then I ended up going to grad school after undergrad. I decided that what I thought I wanted to do when I graduated wasn't what I wanted to do, and I didn't really figure that out while I was in undergrad, so I decided to go to grad school and try to figure out what it is that I wanted to do. So I moved to Washington, D.C. after I graduated from college and went to grad school there. A friend of mine also went to law school in DC, so we lived together for 3 years, and in order to help minimize expenses, we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment I actually slept in the living room for 2 of those years, and eventually we were able to move into a 2-bedroom apartment the 3rd year that we lived together. During grad school, I took out probably about $40,000 of student loans, mostly federal subsidized and unsubsidized loans, but I did end up taking out was either a Grad Plus loan or a private loan for about $8,000 to $10,000 of that $40,000. It's not on here. I don't remember enough about it, and I didn't keep any records of it, so I don't remember exactly, but I remember it was probably about $8,000 to $10,000. So between undergrad and grad school, I took out about $50,000 of student loan debt. And then my husband, who's 6 years younger than me, he took out some student loan debt to help pay for his undergraduate degree. The Wells Fargo and AES loans are his. The Mohela were mine from undergrad and grad school. And then we met in law school in 2010. We were both fortunate enough to, based on our academics and stuff, that we were able to get scholarships that covered about 80% of our tuition. So we basically just had to, come up with the other 20% plus our daily living expenses and stuff. So he had to take out loans for the bulk of that. So I think in law school, ended up taking out about $80,000 of student loan debt. Because I had been working for a number of years and had saved some money, I end up only needing to take out, I think, about $40,000 of student loan debt for law school. So by the time we finished law school, I think our total debt was around $200,000. The starting balance here kind of is including interest that had accrued and included, like for my Mohela loans, which were from undergrad and grad school, was the starting balance back when I initially took them out. So they had been paid down some, but I hadn't been in a rush since they were such low interest rate to pay them off any quicker. So they hadn't gone down too much. But so we probably had around $200,000 when we graduated from law school in 2013. So over the last 10 years, basically, we've paid off about 88% of our student loan debt. And so I kind of wanted to use this video as a way to, one, kind of show how we did it, kind of looking at numbers, and then also just talk about specific things that we did and any tips and tricks that I can recommend. I don't really feel like it's anything that you probably haven't heard before, but just, from personal experience. So next up, this isn't really jumping into specifics, but kind of just walks through the timeline of our paying down the debt. So we graduated in May of 2013 from law school, and we got married in 2014. So we basically wanted to save up some money to help pay for the wedding. So we saved up $7,000, and that, along with I think a small gift we got from my mom, we paid for the wedding itself. My husband's parents paid for the rehearsal, and then we did a honeymoon registry for our honeymoon to New Orleans, so people were able to gift us, going out to dinner and our accommodations and things like that. So it was a great way to be able to go on our honeymoon without, incurring extra debt. And people, and also we were able to encourage people to gift us things on our honeymoon registry rather than giving us things that we didn't necessarily need, especially since I was already in my 30s and we had the bulk of the things that we really needed for our home. So then, we focused on my husband's debts first because, one, they were low interest or low balances, so we could knock them out quicker. But also they were higher interest rate. These first 5 Nelnets were all at 7.9%, where his other Nelnet and my Fed loans, which were the loans from law school, were all at 6.55%. So we didn't really follow specifically, the debt snowball from Dave Ramsey or debt avalanche or anything. We kind of came up with our own, what worked for us. So I think that's one of the things I would encourage people is, I know a lot of people use debt snowball or the debt avalanche, and those are great. And anything that helps you pay off your debts quicker is, phenomenal. But, also figure out what works for you. If, we obviously had some other debts that were smaller in size than ones that we paid off earlier, or we bought a house before we paid off all of our student loan debt, which I know Dave Ramsey doesn't want you to do. He wants you to pay off all your debt first. So we did what worked for us in our situation. So that would be something that I would encourage you to do, is figure out what works best for you in your situation. So then we did, after we paid off my husband's loans that were at 7.9% interest rate, we stopped and saved for a down payment on a house, which we purchased in 2016. And then once that happened, we turned our focus back to paying off our student loans. We paid off my husband's 2 private loans, and then we went back to paying down our law school loans. We paid off the last of my law school loans in July of 2021, and then we paid off the last of my husband's student loans at all in August of 2023. So next I want to kind of show this. So I kept track of, every month what we put towards each loan, or all of our loans, in the order that we were paying them off. So we would pay the minimum payment on each debt, and then we would throw anything extra towards the debt that we were trying to pay off first, and then we moved to the next one. And because of income repayment, because they basically figure out, okay, based on your income, you're required to pay X amount of dollars a month. When we paid off one loan, they just reallocated the total amount to all the other loans. We couldn't quite get that, snowball effect quite in the same way that you would if you're paying like credit card debt, where you could just take the minimum payment for the one and start putting it towards the next one, because they just reallocated it amongst all of them. But it still obviously was a way that we could pay down our debts faster, because we focused on one before moving to the next one. So we basically just focused on, like I said, those student loans that were at the highest interest rate, but had the smallest balance first, just so we could knock them out as quick as possible. So we got basically in 2014, we were able to pay off 3 of my husband's student loans, about $5,000 to $6,000. So during this time in 2015, which was we're starting here, our gross income was about $78,000. In 2014, we were still kind of getting acclimated and set up with our job situation after graduation. So, I don't know exactly what our gross income was then, but in 2015, our gross income was $78,000. And then in 2016, which would get us, so 2015 was all the way through here. And then we, like I said, paid down or saved for a down payment for a little while. And then we turned to my husband's private loans in 2016. And in 2016, our gross income was $63,500. So that got us to here. So we were able to get one of my husband's private loans paid off. And then in 2017, we had a gross income of a little over $68,000, which would get us to here. And then in 2018, I changed jobs. So during 2014 and the start of 2015, both of us had our own law practices. Very long story about all of that. But in 2015, in January, I started working for state government and the court system. So my income had increased to about, I think, $40-something thousand a year. And my husband's income was still kind of fluctuating, but low at that point. So I worked for the state for about 3 years. And then it was like May of 2018, I switched over to private practice. So our income jumped up to about $126,000. So, with that pay increase, we were able to then start kind of increasing how much we were able to put towards debts. But I, wanted to highlight the fact that even though our income did end up increasing significantly within the last few years, we did start out making, less than $70,000 a year when we were paying off our student loans for basically the first, 2014, 15, 16, 17. So like 4.5 years, we were making less than $70,000 a year. So, we basically just found as many different ways that we could to help pay down our student loans. We kept expenses as minimal as possible. Then we, I would do surveys online where I'd get, a few dollars to do them. My husband would go to, do a survey panel where they would ask you questions and he would get paid something. I think at one point I drove for Lyft for a little bit of time, but I didn't really like it, so I didn't do it very long. I worked doing waitressing, so I got tips. We had any money that we could in savings in a higher interest rate, account so that we'd earn interest on it. So then any interest that we would accrue, we could put towards student loans, things like that. We just found extra ways to be able to put towards our debt as quickly as possible. birthday money, Christmas money, anything like that, tax refunds. So, you know, we didn't want to deprive ourselves. We'd still occasionally do fun stuff, but we tried to find inexpensive things that we could do, you know, or free things we could do rather than going out and, you know, spending extra money, because our focus at this point was trying to pay down these student loans. So then continuing on into 2018, we continued paying down my husband's loans, and then finally at the end of 2018, early 2019, we switched over to paying off one of my federal law school loans. And then in 2019, we moved to Minnesota, and of course changed our job situation. It took a while for my husband to find a job when we got up here. I started working right away. And so our pay did decrease, so we ended up making a little over $103,000 gross income for the year. But we were, you know, continued to pay as much as we could. We did put away some money to purchase the house that we're living in now. We got some money from the sale of our house in North Carolina, and used that to help with the down payment, but we wanted to get to a 20% down payment. So we focused on that for a few months before focusing back on our law school loans. In 2020, our gross income was $124,000. We were, of course, able to take advantage of the fact that COVID had happened during this point, and federal loans went to 0% interest rate, and we weren't required to pay anything, but we continued to pay on them. Obviously, there was no new interest accruing, so that was, you know, really helpful. So every penny we would put towards it either went towards principal or paying off income that had accrued prior to the start of COVID. So it helped us pay down these loans a lot faster. So we kept paying through December of 2020. And then kind of into the beginning of 2021, there was, you know, kind of talk as to whether or not there was going to be student loan forgiveness. And we both would have benefited from that. So we kind of waited to see what was going to happen. We stopped making payments, but we kept saving that same money into savings to be paid off if the student loan forgiveness didn't happen or whatever wasn't forgiven. So we kept saving that money. So we did end up paying off the last of my law school loans in July of 2021. And in 2021, with a significant pay increase due to a job promotion, and I also got a nice bonus at work. My husband's job situation also kind of changed during that time. Our pay increased our gross income increased to $145,000, which of course was phenomenal. It was the most we've ever made. And so in 2021, we just kept saving the money while we waited to see what was going to happen. We did pay $2,500 towards my husband's loan at the end of the year so that we could get the tax break for the student loan interest deduction. Then we just kind of went back to saving. And then we made a payment in August of 2022. I think that was when they were kind of didn't think the student loans were going to be forgiven, but then there was kind of still talk about it. So we paid some, but kind of held off. And then eventually, once the court had decided that no, there wasn't going to be any student loan forgiveness, at least based on what was out there at this point, we went ahead and paid off the last of my husband's student loans. So he is completely student loan debt free. So the only thing we have remaining is my loans from undergrad and grad school, which again are locked in at 1.375%. So I'm not really in a hurry to pay them off a whole lot faster. Kind of have other priorities that we're wanting to pay, but I've been paying about $282 a month since repayments went back into play. I did just change my income-based repayment plan, so my the monthly payment's gonna go up to like $337 and some change. So I might bump it up to like $340 or $350 a month or something, just to put a little bit extra towards it, but nothing significant. So yeah, so I feel like as far as things that we did, we used the zero-based budgeting. We used envelope budgeting, although we used it in the way of you need a budget rather than cash budgeting or cash envelopes. And then, like I said, we kind of did our own version of a debt payoff that worked with what we were trying to do in our situation. We found numerous ways to earn extra money. We increased our income over time. We got pay increases due to working hard, promotions. We changed jobs to take advantage of pay increases. We got bonuses, or I got bonuses. My husband doesn't usually get bonuses, but we used money that we didn't spend each month to put towards student loans. So if we budgeted, $200 for groceries and we only spent $150, then, we take that extra $50 and put it towards student loans. And we were able to take advantage of the 0% interest rate during COVID to be able to pay down our student loans faster. So with that in mind, things that I would recommend for people is first use a budget, make a plan for your money. I think that's one of the most crucial things because, people seem to think that budgeting is a restrictive word. You're saying I can only spend, but it's like, no, you're just making a plan. A plan can change. If you need to spend more money on something, you can. You just need to, reallocate the funds. But I think it's easier, it's kind of like making a meal plan or something like that. If you make a plan, it's easier to stick to it. And then, saving for non-monthly expenses and like sinking funds and stuff. We made sure that we saved for, for Christmas, for car maintenance, things like that. So that way, when those did pop up, we had the funds for it. We didn't throw every single extra penny that we could have possibly put towards our student loans, but we tried to put as much as possible. Like I said, for debt payoff, use what works for you. If Dave Ramsey works for you, do it. If the debt avalanche works for you, do that. If you want to make up your own, like I've heard of somebody that just said like they pick the debt that is most painful to them, or every time they look at it, it just they're like, I hate that debt. Like pick that debt to pay off first. Like even if it's a 0% debt, like maybe you just hate having a debt that you owe to a family member or something, and you really want to get that gone. Like pick that debt, do what works for you, even if it doesn't make sense to other people. Find ways to earn extra money, side hustles. There's so many side hustles that you can do nowadays. You work overtime if you have that option. Do surveys, put money into a higher interest account where you can earn interest on the money that you have in your bank account. Places like Capital One, Ally, I use Fidelity, but there's a myriad of different places that you can put your money into to earn higher interest on the money that you have in savings. Work a second job if you can, deliver newspapers, drive for Uber and Lyft, use your tax refund, things like that. you know, increase your income over time, whether that's getting pay raises, looking for a new job. Obviously that's always kind of the harder one to do because it takes a lot longer to do. You know, keeping your expenses as low as you can, and putting anything you have left over towards your debt. You know, obviously the keeping up with the Joneses is a thing because it's really easy to see somebody that has something that you want and you want it too, especially nowadays with social media. I think it's easy to be like, oh, this person just got a new car or is on this vacation, I need to do that too. But you know, you have to make a decision about what works for your situation, and is it more important to pay off your debt, or to go on this, you know, vacation or take a trip or something, and finding a balance. I think too, that's the most important part is, you know, we paid off our student loan debt over, I shouldn't say paid it off, but we've been paying it off and paid down it. But we didn't deprive ourselves. We still occasionally would go out to dinner. We would take vacations, but we would try to, you know, keep the costs low on those vacations. We'd go see family members where we didn't have to, you know, pay for every single expense like we would if we were, you know, having to stay in hotels and things like that. Rewarding yourself if you do pay down a debt, you know, maybe you treat yourself a little bit, you know, go out to dinner or get that massage or manicure or something like that. You know, don't go crazy, but you know, it goes back to the deprivation, but also like you did an amazing thing. You've paid off a debt, or a couple debts or something, and you know, you deserve to kind of get to celebrate that win. And then I think probably the most important is to be patient. You know, we've been paying down these student loans for 10 years and we still have almost $40,000 of student loan debt still left, or $25,000 of student loan debt still left. And then we still have our mortgage. So, I mean, it's not you're probably not going to get rid of the debt as quick as you might like to get rid of it. It might take years, decades, and you know, some situation. But just being patient, and you know, and I think this community is great because, you know, you get to celebrate other people's doing it, but then they celebrate you when you pay off a debt or something. So, you know, I think having a community, whether that's a community you have that consists of, you know, family members and friends and stuff in person, or having this community here on YouTube, you know, that can celebrate with you as you pay down your debt. So yeah, so I think that is it. And I hope that this can help somebody along their journey. And I look forward to hearing any comments that you might have, hearing your stories about your debt journey. So yeah, please, if possible, I would love it if you would like and subscribe to this, or hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and also leave a comment. So thank you so much.